Good Thursday morning to you. We're tracking a few thunderstorms now along a rain band associated with Tropical Storm Harvey, one of which has now produced a tornado warning. Now, the rotation associated with this is going to be down here into parts of Neshoba County. This warning is actually including northeastern Neshoba County and into northwestern Kemper County, but this does include the far southeastern corner of Winston County, the Handle community right there just to the west of Siples Mill. We're going to look at the rotation associated with this and get a good idea as to where that rotation is located right now. That rotation is going to be hard to detect at this point, but I would say it's going to be right there to the east of Sandtown. That's going to be in Neshoba County, tracking more to the northeast. I'm going to get a little more information on this tornado warning storm. Again, it's not going to look all that impressive on radar whenever we look at the rain mode, but this is moving to the north at about 35 miles per hour. So if we put a track on this, and we're going to put it at about 35 miles per hour moving to the north, that would put it in the Nanawaya area probably, along with Handle. Sometime we'll say Prince Chapel at around 1021. And we're also looking at the Handle community at around 1028. Now, the nature of these tropical systems, when they do produce a tornadic thunderstorm or any kind of tornadic downpour, any kind of rotation, they're short-lived. So the question is, does this actually make it as far as Winston County? At this point, you would think, with it being a tropical system, possibly not. But we can't really afford to say that necessarily. So, and Matt, we are live on Facebook as well over there too, just so you know. So we are all hands on deck right now. This line just producing just enough shear to produce small areas of rotation that are a little more surface based, or a little, not necessarily totally surface based, but close enough to the ground that we have to watch it closely, and that's the reason why tornado warnings have already been issued. We're going to look once again at the rain mode of the radar. This is going to be this is going to have it approaching the far northwestern corner of Noxubee County. So if you live anywhere along the Highway 397, Mississippi Highway 397 near Handle, that's going to be east of Nanawaya. This is the area of Winston County we're talking about. And if we have any viewers who happen to be in northeastern Neshoba County or northern and northwestern Kemper County, we're going to be watching you as well. We're going to zoom out a little bit and get another look at this entire line, because these storms, even though they don't look impressive on radar, they have that potential to produce some sort of low-level rotation. So we are going to look again over here at velocity on all these little storms and just get an idea as to whether we might have another warning coming out. Again, right now, if you're just joining us, we're tracking a tornado warning now for southeastern Winston County. That's going to include the Handle community and perhaps even the Nanawaya community. I want to really highlight that as well. Let's talk about what a tornado warning is exactly. A tornado warning is when a tornado has either been spotted visually with your own two eyes, or you can look at radar and tell there's a possibility that there is some sort of circulation. Now, Doppler radar in this case has detected some rotation, and that rotation is just south of our coverage area, down into parts of Neshoba and Noxubee County, basically right along the Neshoba-Noxubee County line, and that is tracking to the north, and that would eventually put it into southeastern Winston County. And so that's the reason why we are on the air and we are bringing you this warning. So how do you react to a tornado warning? A tornado warning is when you take action. You find a sturdy structure, a home. You don't want to go into a mobile home. If you live in a mobile home, try to find a sturdier structure. Go to the lowest floor. If you have a storm shelter underground, that would be perfect. I know that area probably has a few of them there, but also you can find a room in the middle of your home. If you do have a sturdy structure, find a room in the middle of the home. You want to find maybe a bathroom, something along those lines, and turn up the TV volume and wrap up in blankets and pillows, so that way you don't, if there is a tornado, if there is any damage, you don't have any kind of flying debris, so that would protect you. And stay put until we give you the all clear. And when would we give you that all clear? It's basically when this red box goes away. This red box is the area under the tornado warning. Where are unsafe places? Places you don't want to be. You don't want to be in a car or a truck. Those vehicles are basically just like mobile homes. They can be picked up by these winds and tossed about. So you don't want to be in a car or truck. You don't want to be driving anywhere from Preston up toward the Handle area. And you don't want to be in any large open rooms, especially if there are windows. You don't want to be near a window because that glass could break out, and of course that would be an issue. You want to go to the upper floor, or you don't want to be in the upper floor. Of course, you can also, if you're in this area, you can always check out the app. You can download the weather app, and you can also get that information there on your phone. So if you have your TV, if the power goes out, you'll be able to get that. If you can pull the radar, Matt, a little bit, okay, so you're good there. So this is the tornado warning area we're watching. It's that southeastern corner of Winston County.
What speed is this going?
It's about 35 miles per hour. I've already got the line tracker set at 35. So yeah, well, not that one, but
I changed it.
Okay, you did change it. Okay, so that's tracking to the north at about 35 miles per hour. That's going to put it near Prince Chapel in about 9 minutes. 16 minutes for the Handle community, so that would be probably in the next, again, 16 minutes, and 22 minutes for Fern Springs, which is a little bit farther north. And Matt, I think you would probably agree this isn't going to last that long. Tropical systems,
they're short-lived. Very short-lived.
Short-lived. And the odds are there's a good chance that maybe this will fall apart before it gets there, but we have to be careful. And the thing is, it could fall apart and then redevelop. So that's the reason why this warning is still out. Matt, can we zoom out a little bit more and just look at some of these other cells along that line? Because I don't know if you were here or if you knew it, but we had one warning up here in Tate County earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's happening is this band, this rain band that stretches through Starkville. We've also got this cell over here into southeastern Winston County. I know it's not that ominous on radar like what you would see in the spring, but these do have just enough rotation, perhaps, to, what's that?
Winston County?
Not Winston County, Webster County, I'm sorry, but Winston County still. Let's zoom in on that. Let's switch over to the velocity mode just to look at that, just west of Mabin. That could have some rotation right there along the Webster, Choctaw County line. Just a little bit, possibly. Would you agree with that, Matt? And that may be just enough to warrant a tornado warning. This would probably be moving, Matt, would you agree that this would move more to the north and west toward the Fame community, Cumberland, Clarkson, and just probably the next 15 to 25 minutes or so, we're talking about eastern Webster County. Right now, there's no warning for this, but these are the types of cells I'm talking about. If we can go back to the rain mode of that, again, that rotation would be just around Mathiston. No warning yet, but it's possible that the National Weather Service decides to issue one later on. Let's zoom out a little bit more and try to get another grip on the rest of these storms that are in our area. Let's revisit the one down here into Winston County just to make sure we're touching on that. Let's look at the velocity mode real quick, if you don't mind. So we still, and it's really hard to tell. This is what we call just kind of a radar donut hole or whatever. It's kind of in between two different radars. It's hard to get good data out in these areas, but if there's any rotation with that, it's going to be somewhere just to the southeast of Nanawaya, tracking north toward Handle probably in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Would you agree, Matt?
Yes, I agree. And by the way, the National Weather Service in Jackson also watching your Webster County storm, talking about persistent rotation with greater depth than we've been seeing. So they are watching that Webster County storm as well. So not impossible that it becomes the next one we really have to watch. Good catch, Joel.
Yeah, we're tracking that real closely. If we can zoom out again, I'm going to step out of the way real quick and swap out my IFB batteries, Matt. But we are also watching some more storms along that same band that could pop up. We were tracking one over into Tallahatchie County. It just crossed out of Yalobusha County over into Tallahatchie County. But we were watching that earlier, and can we look at the rotation on that? That may be a little bit.
That would be the one over
farther.
Enid. Is that the one you're talking about?
Enid, yes.
Okay, yeah, we can look at that.
That one would be heading up toward the Pope area, Cortland, right along I-55, or just west rather of I-55. There's probably some gusty winds with that, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it's going to be tornado warned at this point. I think right now the one that has the most rotation that has not been issued with a warning right now, but the one we need to watch closely is probably over Webster County. Would you agree, Matt?
Absolutely. I mean, you can see that rotation track there on that one that's kind of showed up over the last 30, 40 minutes. So.
Exactly. And yeah, and so what we're looking at right here is areas of possible rotation here near the Mabin area, and that's tracking more to the north. Now, that would put it over, it's in eastern Webster County, that would track it northward. A lot of the times when we look at these storms, usually a tornado would track from southwest to northeast, but these are going to have a little more tendency to have more of a northerly component to it, or even maybe a northwesterly component to it. So we're going to track that. That would eventually, if it held together, it would eventually put it up into parts of southwestern Chickasaw County. So we're looking at the Fame community in the next 13 minutes. Right now, no warning has been issued, but the National Weather Service has they have acknowledged that there is rotation with it, and it has greater depth to it.
And that's important, because the thing is a lot of times these tropical circulations, they're all spinning a little bit, but how deep is, we had spinning storms last night,
right,
but it's that depth that actually produces the tornado.
And again, when you look at this on radar, it doesn't look that impressive with the rain mode. They don't, you know, you don't have the deep oranges and reds and purples and things that you would typically expect, but it's a tropical system. It's a totally different scenario, totally different dynamic. And so these usually they'll pop up and then they disappear. And another thing that's important to mention, you know, these radar images, they usually come out every, what, 4 minutes?
So I think it's in a mode now where we get about 2.
2 minutes, okay. So, but if it pops up quickly and it disappears, then it's possible that the radar can miss it. So we need to mention each one of these and watch it closely. And that's the reason why I wanted to stay on the live stream on WTVA.com.
Absolutely.
As long as we possibly could. As of the storm down here that does have a tornado warning with it over southeastern Winston County, still tracking it. There's possible rotation just to the south of Nanawaya, tracking up toward Prince Chapel. That's right there where Neshoba, Kemper, and Winston counties meet. That would track it up toward Handle in the next 13 minutes. Eventually around the Fern Springs area, which is just south of 14, right?
Yeah. And
right along the.
And what I would also emphasize is at this point that, you know, you have some folks and you start talking about the most populous part of Winston County, a place that's been hit by tornadoes before, Louisville. A lot of folks there are asking, well, what about us? This one, most likely this rain band probably keeping a little west. And,
yeah.
And you're a tropical expert, and you know how these rain bands, especially on the coast when you're there, how they don't look impressive, but they tend to follow the same tracks.
They do tend to follow the same tracks, and that's the reason why a lot of times you have the flash flooding threat with these, because you have storms that follow the same spots over and over again. But again, what Matt was saying, and something else I'd probably want to emphasize, is the fact that I'm not sure, we haven't gotten any sort of reports, and Matt, if you've seen anything, but the sirens might be going off in Louisville, and that's probably getting a lot of people concerned. Louisville is going to be far enough west of this band of storms that maybe it misses out on it right now, but again, this is just the southeast corner, basically just Handle, barely even Nanawaya. But we need to watch that. Also, another storm, and I'm glad Matt zoomed in on this because it's something that, and again, these are so hard to watch. See, I mean, when you go back to the rain mode, it barely looks like much. It's barely even like a mile wide or maybe 2 miles, you know, the storm itself. But do you see that little back appendage to it? And it has a little bit of a signature that would show some sort of sign of rotation.
Rotation, yeah.
And these are small rotations. Tropical systems, typically, if they do produce a tornado, they're not going to stay on the ground for long. They're usually weak, but weak in terms of not as strong as what you'd see in the spring, but strong enough to cause damage, and that's why we want to watch it very closely. The one we're talking about, by the way, is just to the northeast of New Hope, there in Lowndes County, just to the east and southeast of Columbus. That would put it near the forest area. So if you're traveling northwest along Highway 82, if you're trying to head east on 82 from Columbus, just maybe give it a little more, another minute or so until that maybe passes. That would put it eventually near McCrary. In 3 minutes, Forest about 6 minutes, and the Steens area in 14 minutes. Matt, let's zoom out again and just look at these other cells that I just want to make sure.
I'll trade you. I'll let you take over for a second. I'm going to get you m.cam.
Okay, yeah. So we're looking at m.dot camera?
No, I'm going to go and pull it up. I'm going to let you take over running.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so what we're looking at, and again, we are tracking this. This is one band of storms, and it really doesn't have a whole lot of thunder and lightning with it. These aren't very heavy downpours. They're heavy enough that it's causing issues if you're driving on it, but these are tapping into just enough shear to produce some rotation. This one, the red box we're watching, is the one with the rotation that we're a little bit more concerned about. Now, let's zoom in once again. We're going to look at the velocity on radar. As this continues to track to the north, the rotation is going to go with it. Nanawaya, that's probably going to be just to your southeast. Basically, we're looking at this rotation directly over where Winston, Noxubee, and not Noxubee, Neshoba and Kemper County meet. It's not far from Noxubee County. It's actually just to the west of Golson there. But that would track it up Highway 397 or just up the highway there. There's right there along that county line just to the south of Fern Springs. I want to, and I'm not even going to switch over to the radar mode just yet. I'm going to look at the velocities along this band and just make sure that we're not missing any kind of rotation. Do you see anything, Matt, along this line that would concern you before I switch it over to the rain mode?
Other than the Webster County, and even then that doesn't look as deep as it did a little bit ago.
Mm-mm.
These are so. I was talking to one of the school superintendents earlier, and they were, well, talking about, do we need to plan to dismiss school, that kind of thing. I was like, these are react kind of storms.
Yeah.
It is. Hey, there's 2 scans. Look, it's rotating. Let's issue a tornado warning. I mean, it's just very,
and by the time
very fast changing.
And that's
most of the time. By the time the warning comes out, the rotation is either peaking or.
That's the unfortunate part about tropical systems and forecasting. It's like finding a needle in the haystack.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly.
And even you sit on the needle, it's like, oops, and then you pull the needle out.
But again, we have to treat it as as if this could still be a situation ongoing. And the thing is, if there's rotation once and it weakens, it could re-strengthen at some point. So we have to stay on it. So again, the reason why we're on the air right now, southeastern Winston County is under a tornado warning. That goes until, let's see, I think that was what, 10? What time is it now?
It should
through 10:30 or 10:45.
Hit the closest radar. It should pop up automatically for you.
Okay. That goes until 10:30. So we're less than 10 minutes away from this actually being, and the reason being, if you remember, when we first went on the air, that rotation was down here just to the southeast of Sandtown. It has since tracked to the north and east, and it's already right there along the, I would put it pretty much right south of Handle, just to the north of Preston. So basically right along 397 between Preston and Handle. So that tornado warning, basically, if you have anybody watching us in Neshoba County or in northwestern Kemper County, unless you live right along that county line, it's pretty much done for right now. Now, we're again, these storms, and we're talking about the unfortunate nature of these storms, how they, on radar, they don't appear that ominous.
Thankfully.
Yeah, but at the same time,
it's one of those things that we're dealing with maybe more what we call hybrid, where you could argue that they're not fully tropical. It's kind of a good thing, because a fully tropical is going to probably last longer. A fully supercellular, like we would typically have, is going to last longer. And this is neither, and hopefully that means it lasts less.
And the thing is, with these, it's just a little more difficult to detect because of the nature of the situation. It's a tropical system. If it was something in the spring, obviously it would be easier to detect, but it'd be stronger, I guess. So that's not necessarily stronger, but these are relatively weak circulations, and that's what we talked about. These would be weak tornadoes if they develop, but it doesn't matter if it's weak. If it does any damage, that's worth mentioning. And so that's the reason why we're on the air right now. Another storm we're going to zoom in on. If you were zoomed all the way out, you barely see this, but this is really right along Highway 82 to the east of Columbus. You've got some heavy rainfall there. There's somewhat of an appendage there, but if we can just switch it over to velocity just to get a look and see if there's any rotation. I don't see anything here that really stands out to me when it comes to velocity.
Let me go up a scan just in case it's hiding above.
All right, there you go, right there. So what we're doing is we're looking at different levels of the atmosphere. So one level that I was just looking at where I said I didn't see it was at the low levels. So Matt's looking at other levels higher up. And as we go a little bit higher up, were you seeing anything?
I was seeing just a little bit, and maybe on the upper, left-hand corner of the screen here, you can see something in downtown Columbus
there.
You
can see some clouds.
You can see the clouds. That's probably that shower on the west side. I mean, on the east side there. It would be a struggle to say this is going to produce a tornado, but there's some rotation there. That's the problem. They're all rotating to a certain extent.
Right. Exactly. Now, the Winston County tornado warning is going to expire in 4 minutes, or maybe a little under now, probably 3.5 minutes. But that storm just there on the southeast side, again, this is not Louisville proper. The sirens might go off in Louisville proper because it's part of Winston County. However, this only includes Handle and Nanawaya. and really I would say it's probably right over Handle right now, right there along Highway 397, southeast of Claytown. That would be heading towards Fern Springs. But at this point, if there was any real indication that this thing was maintaining itself, I think the Weather Service would have already issued a new tornado warning for western Noxubee.
And they have been dead silent as to whether or not they're going to do anything else. And usually they're like, we're queuing up another tornado warning, or we see rotation maintain. At
this point, I anticipate we'll probably end up disengaging, at least from the air. Now, we're going to be on WTVA.com streaming continuously, even when this warning expires, which it will probably in the next 3 minutes, because we haven't really gotten any sort of indication from the Weather Service that it will continue. But we will be on WTVA.com, so if you want to continue to watch, we'll be over there, and we will obviously break back in if there is a warning.
They issued a new tornado warning, Winston, Noxubee, until 11 a.m.
11 a.m.
That should be popping on the screen here in just a moment.
All right, so what they're going to do, and if you'll zoom out, Matt, just so I can get a little bit of an, okay, there's the new warning. This is going to include Meshulaville. This is going to include all of western and southwestern Noxubee County. This is all of eastern Winston County, rather. So this goes until 11 o'clock, so we're continuing for another 30 minutes now. That circulation has held it together just long enough that they've decided to issue a new one. Now, this is going to include Fern Springs. It's going to include all areas in eastern Winston County and western Noxubee County, right along Highway 14. So I would just advise you, if you're traveling maybe west of Meshulaville or east of Louisville, if you've got plans to drive along Highway 14, I would hold it off for another 30 minutes or so. Just let this storm pass by. The circulation with it, it's going to put it in Meshulaville in about 22 minutes, Fern Springs in about 9 minutes, of course. So there's that rotation, and I can see now what's happening is this storm is getting a little bit closer to the radar site in Columbus, so we're getting a little bit better data from this. And so as it continues to move north, we're getting a clearer signal, and you can see some brighter greens there and almost a faint reddish color there that would symbolize some sort of rotation maybe. It's not the strongest rotation. Tropical systems don't have very strong rotation.
And we're also probably looking a mile up on a tropical system.
Exactly.
If we were 1,000 feet, we'd have a good look.
And a tropical system is going to have more of a surface base.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot small. I mean, hold on.
Much smaller scale.
Well, it's a lot shorter storm. Let me see what the storm top is on this. Storm top comes in.
And that's the reason when we show you the rain mode of the radar, you're not seeing these deep oranges, purple colors. We're not talking hail. We're not talking really a lot of lightning either.
If we were looking 7,000 to 8,000 feet up, which isn't impossible at this distance, well, 8,000 a little high, but 4,000 to 7,000 feet up, you're halfway up through the storm. That's not where the tornado would be.
And something else that makes it really difficult to detect tropical rotations. A lot of times in the spring, you can tell if there is some sort of strengthening or weakening, how it changes as far as lightning goes. There's not a lot of lightning with these. So something else we want to point out there is a little bit more of a signature there, just a little bit of a appendage there. If you'll notice, you've got a little bit of a void of red there. If you'll pause that just for a second, south of Fern Springs. So that's going to put it just north of 397. That would symbolize possible strengthening of that rotation, which, by the way, is probably why the National Weather Service did decide to extend this warning for eastern Winston County and western Noxubee County until 11 o'clock. That's going to put it near Fern Springs in the next couple of minutes. So if you live in Fern Springs, I want you to go ahead and take cover. So what is a tornado warning? Well, a tornado has either been spotted with someone's two eyes, or the radar has confirmed debris. That's not the case. Neither one of those is the case. Or, and this is a situation, Doppler radar has detected rotation that could develop into a tornado very soon. Now, at this kind of situation, we've got some indication of rotation just north of Handle, and it's tracking to the northeast at about 35 miles per hour. So what do? You need to find a sturdy structure. If you're in eastern Winston County and western Noxubee County, find a sturdy structure. We're not talking about a mobile home. We're not talking about a car or a truck. We want to go to the lowest floor of your home and get inside a center room, maybe a closet, maybe a bathroom. Make sure that bathroom doesn't have any windows, by the way. You want to turn up the TV volume, and you want to wrap up in blankets and pillows and just stay put until you have the all clear. And also, if you have the Weather Authority app, you can have that streaming our coverage here on the air, and you can also go to WTVA.com. If you lose power, you should be able to do that from your smartphone, and you can actually take us to the closet or to the bathroom with you, so we can continue to bring you information until we get the all clear.
New feature, but two things. they have slowed down the speed to 20 miles per hour. I'm going to keep it 25 just to, kind of cover our bases here. We also have the ability now on Storm Track Doppler radar to do some all clear times.
Okay.
So times in which you would be all clear based upon that 25 miles per hour speed. And so typically when you show you a storm track, we're telling you how long until it gets there. This is how long until you can come out of your safe place.
That's a good point. So what we're doing here is saying that in about 6 minutes, if you live in Fern Springs, and that's Fern Springs if there's an actual spot of Fern Springs. Some people may live along Highway 14 and consider themselves to live in Fern Springs. If you live there, right in here where my finger's pointing, then that would be the spot I'm saying in 6 minutes you can get out of your safe place. I would give it another 10 to 15 minutes if you're traveling along. I would maybe give myself 20 minutes. If you're driving along Highway 14, that's just a little bit too much of a risk. West of Meshulaville, east of Boone, east of Louisville, and that's a lot closer to the Noxubee County line there along 14.
Let's at least check for debris just to make sure. And this is always kind of tricky, especially in these kind of storms. You would be looking for some of those blue returns in the same spot where there was rotation.
And in this situation, you're just not.
Yeah, there's nothing there, thankfully. There's no clear signature, and that's good enough.
And anything in this situation, a tropical system, if there is any rotation, if there is any kind of debris, it's not going to be lofted as high as that radar beam is located, at least at this point. So we wouldn't be able to spot that. Matt, are you getting any new information from the National Weather Service?
We did get a report from responders on the ground in Preston and Kemper County, and there's no damage. That's the report.
No damage
so
from 397s, or right along, well, south. Preston is located on 397 down here. That's in Kemper County. But at this point, we haven't gotten any reports of damage. Now, the rotation was more west of Preston here. So, if you have any kind of damage reports, if you're in Winston County, please let us know so we can pass that information off to our other viewers.
Also, and this is just an overarching discussion, the Storm Prediction Center issuing a discussion a moment ago talking about the circulations related to Harvey, talking about storms like this and whether or not they're going to choose to issue a watch. They're in the maybe, maybe not zone, kind of leaning towards
somewhat. Did they put out a mesoscale discussion?
They just did a moment ago, basically talking about how breaks in the cloud cover, adding a little instability,
that makes sense.
Basically fuel, and how everything is just kind of working together where the brief tornado potential remains possible. They're not 50-50, but they're a little better than that on whether or not they'd issue a watch, which would probably be a tornado watch. And they specifically mentioned Tupelo and Columbus, Mississippi, and they're based out of Norman, so that's about as specific as they're going to get as the zone that they're watching toward Tuscaloosa to possibly issue this watch, depending on how it all pans out.
Let's zoom out a little bit. You want to get control of it there. So if we zoom out a little bit, I want to point out we're watching this one band of just light to moderate showers. Any other time, if it wasn't that it was tapping into rotation, I'd barely be talking about this. But on radar, what you're seeing are this one that looks obviously a little bit more solid than some of these others. You got another one maybe over northeastern Chickasaw County there that we need to watch that might have a little bit more to it. Maybe one over here into Yalobusha County. And perhaps this one, we've been watching this one a good bit, but you notice it's got a little deeper red, so that's kind of what draws our eye to it. And also it has a little bit more of this little, I would almost say backwards J shape or L shape if you looked at it at a different angle. Right at this point, Matt, do you see any kind of rotation with it? I mean, there's rotation with it, but is it?
I feel just about as confident on this one as you do any other storm that we have. I know why, just because it's not as big. That's the reason they haven't pulled on a tornado warning on it. But
and
I would say if you live in Caledonia, if you live in Steens, I would be doing my tornado safety
ready.
rules.
And also you got to keep in mind this is right along the edges of the Jackson CWA. CWA is a county warning area. As this goes north, if it strengthens, Memphis might issue something for Monroe County, but Jackson would be the one to issue a warning for Lowndes County. So we're just going to watch that
Give me just a second.
closely.
I want to try to see if we can double check speed. Since we're getting conflicting speed reports on this, I want to get the right.
Let me regroup a little bit more. I just want to remind folks the reason why we're on the air right now. There is a tornado warning now for southeastern and eastern Winston County that goes until 11 o'clock this morning. We also have a tornado warning that's in effect for western Noxubee County. That same storm that's tracking through the Fern Springs area, that's tracking to the northeast at about, are they saying 25 miles per hour now?
They're
or
saying
35?
20, but I just got 30 out of that storm in Lowndes County, so I would be 25 and
And
feel
so
comfortable with that.
at this point, and Matt, can we switch over to the velocity once again? All of this, by the way, if you live in Handle, all clear, you're good. But that rotation is there actually, and if you live in this area where my fingers are pointing, you might consider yourself to live in Handle. Handle Center right there is right there. That area is in the clear, but right around Fern Springs, north of Fern Springs, that's where your circulation is right there. And I would argue maybe it's approaching or getting close to the Highway 14 area there, just east of Boone, west of Meshulaville. And that's going to continue northward. Eventually, if it holds together, and surprisingly, this thing has held together pretty well, but that would put it up there near the Lake Forest Ranch area or perhaps around the Noxubee Refuge, which is just south of Oktok.
I would say this: if this storm were in Monroe County, right next to the radar site, or this storm were down around Jackson, right next to the radar site, I don't necessarily feel confident that they would be.
We would have better
this.
data.
We would have better data. We're not taking any chances. You just don't take chances with the tropical system, and that's the reason why they continued this warning.
The reason why we say that is tropical systems, when you're looking for rotation with storms that are associated with tropical systems, the rotation's really hard to tell. It's kind of like finding a needle in the haystack. It's a lot different than what you'd see in the spring or maybe in the late fall, where you can look at a pretty sizable supercell with a lot of lightning. You can usually pick out the rotation pretty clearly. This is a totally different situation. So right now we're tracking this when the rotation's just to the north of Fern Springs. If there is a tornado with this, it's going to put it crossing Highway 14 sometime in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So if you're traveling east on 14, east of Louisville, heads up. Just might want to give that a little while longer before it until it goes through. Be on the safe side. West of Meshulaville as well. I would argue some places, and Macon is not in this, by the way. If you're hearing any kind of sirens blowing in western Noxubee County around Macon, Macon proper is not part of this. We're only watching this storm right here that's going to track right there. It's probably going to cross Highway 14 in Winston County. But we want to watch it really closely. It could try to jog over into parts of Noxubee County, which is the reason why you're under that warning. So that's going to continue moving north. And is it me or is it picked up in speed?
I think it's probably picked up speed a little bit. It's not. Here's the thing. At this exact moment, it would in no way shock me if this did not produce a tornado.
Sure.
But we're not looking 10 feet above the ground. We're looking a mile above the ground, and radar is not perfect. Radar doesn't see a tornado, it sees rotation, and the rotation on these is typically very small. This is not the tornado that went through Louisville in 2014 or some of the big tornadoes that we've had. This is small, and so radar is going to be very unimpressive, and then we find out after the fact, oh, look, it produced damage, and that's why we're being extra cautious.
And so, in just a heads up, this is going to eventually track north, and at this point, Matt, do we have any kind of word from the Weather Service as to whether this is sustaining itself? Does it look like they might try to issue a new warning for northeastern winds? And basically what I'm trying to figure out is, as this red blob gets a little bit toward the top of this red box, are they going to add a new red box north of it? We need to know that, because that would give us an idea as to whether this is still...
They haven't indicated one way or another. That most of the discussion has been, with superintendents trying to get information from emergency managers, that sort of stuff. I will say, new severe thunderstorm warning came out there, Coffeyville, and the tag on. I can take that real quick. That's fine. The tag on that is tornado possible. And so there's different strategies that the Weather Service is going to take. The reason that's the case, I would say that this falls into about the same category as the storm in Winston County. It's just this is Memphis's area, and they're going to go severe with tornado possible.
Well,
it's really the same
Let's look
scenario.
at the velocity on this real quick. Again, this is Yalobusha County. This is a severe thunderstorm warning, and if we can pop up, what is the expiration time on this?
Give me just a second here.
This is for Yalobusha, north central, and maybe a little bit of northwestern Yalobusha County. It's east of Oakland. Oakland proper itself, not in this, right at the Oakland exit, but right over Enid Lake. If you drive along 32 very often, I drove through there yesterday. If you drive through there, there's a bridge that goes over the backwaters of Enid Lake. That would probably go right over that same spot. So if you're traveling west on 32 west of Water Valley, give yourself just maybe a little extra time, wait it out, wait till that little cell passes on through. Because again, this is a severe thunderstorm warning, but there's enough rotation with it that it could possibly develop into something. And what I would imagine is if there's any more real signs of rotation with it, Weather Service is going to go ahead and pull the trigger on that tornado warning.
Exactly.
But right now, they have not done so.
Yeah, it's one of those, it's a safe bet. I mean, without looking at velocities, I think you and I, as meteorologists, could simply say, well, it's got some rotation, so it's like, is it a heavy enough storm?
Right.
Okay, now I could pull severe, this kind of pre-tornado.
If we looked at this storm, and if it was in April or May, we probably would, if it wasn't associated with a tropical system, we probably wouldn't even be, I don't think it would be producing. We wouldn't be concerned about it producing. But with this being a tropical system, the nature of tropical systems is, if you have any kind of rotation, it has potential to develop into something because it's so surface-based. And so we have to watch that. Matt, are you trying to draw my attention there to what's going on?
I'm just, these have both, anytime we're going to get any reds or, anything, any core that's deepening on this,
Right.
I think you got to probe it and at least see, because we're going to see it just as quickly as the National Weather Service is, because we're all kind of looking at the same radar data here. I'm going to try to get a shot out of the Tupelo Tower cam here in a minute on this, but the rotation not strong enough on that.
What we're saying at this point is, during a tropical system, again, it's hard to detect any kind of rotation at first. It's hard to find. It's almost like finding a needle in the haystack. But the first clue we look for are these red dots here and there. And so what we're doing is we're just examining both of these just to see, is there any kind of rotation? And at this point, we don't see that around Oklahoma. What we're doing now is we're just getting a look. We're looking south. This is more south and southeast of Tupelo, just trying to get a look into that storm, which of course is south of Tupelo. We're actually looking at a storm that would be along Highway 45 alternate near the Egypt area, right there where 45 crosses over into Chickasaw County. We're looking that way, and Matt, do you see anything there that would?
I mean,
and it's going to be hard.
We're not going to be able to. But what I definitely, like, you can. So we're looking probably just west of south. I mean, we're about as close to straight south as you're going to get. And maybe the right-hand part of the screen there, you could see some kind of a lowering, but there's certainly nothing that says, ooh, tornado right now, out of this, thankfully. So, I mean, this is just getting the camera in position as these storms move in.
Let's revisit that storm down in Winston County, because we still have that warning out for another probably 15 minutes for southeastern and eastern Winston County and southwestern and western Noxubee County. That's going to be just to the east of Louisville and Macon. So if you're following us, this actually would have just crossed over Highway 14. And if you've been with us for the last little bit, you've heard us talk about, you just want to give yourself a little extra time. If you're planning on driving along 14 in this area, that would have probably crossed that area. Matt?
No reports of damage in Winston County, according to authorities down there. That coming from the newsroom in the last few minutes here. So at least at this point, we're still in the maybe, possibly, not the this is for sure happening. Luckily.
And again, a lot of times, and the reason why we're on the air is if there was something that's out there, chances are we wouldn't know it until after the fact. It's not as easy as having two eyes on this storm. We'd be able to have a little more confidence in it. That's the reason we just can't take any risks. What's happening at this point is your rotation is getting to the very end of the tornado warned area. And at some point here in the next 5-10 minutes, that storm's going to actually exit the warned area. And so do you see this darker red box? This is a box that Matt has drawn. It's just giving you an idea of where it's going to be in the next, I'd say Starkville probably in the next hour or so. It put it in that area. Penns in about 52 minutes, Lynn Creek, Octok, all those areas within the next 30 minutes or so, 30 to 45 minutes. And so what I'm wondering now, and Matt, have you seen anything from the Weather Service as to whether this is going to be continued?
They have not had much discussion related to this, thankfully. So that's usually a good sign, but also they haven't given us a whole lot to this point. If you wouldn't mind, would you mind in the control room if we went the weather 2, just because that... Okay, well, in a minute here, if we can get that, that's always a little easier for me.
One thing I want to point out, and my producer's been reminding me, this is going to last another 15 minutes. At least the warning itself is issued for another 15 minutes. So it's about 10:45 now. It goes until 11, but the storm itself is about to exit the box. So at some point, Matt, would you agree they'll probably discontinue the warning? Not yet, but for a little bit longer.
I think they're going to be forced. I think they're probably going to reissue it. I mean, it could go 50-50 on this because it still has the shape. It's still in a place we're not going to get good velocity on it, good wind reports. And
let's look real quickly. I'm going to look over here at the velocity. There's still some weak rotation. And again, when I say weak, I mean a tropical system is going to have weak rotation.
Guys, sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
It's WTVA's Craig Ford. Just got on the phone with Winston County Sheriff Jason Pugh. His deputies are tracking, but no reports of any damage.
No reports of damage, and that's good news, and we hope it stays that way. But as long as there's a warning, we're going to continue to make sure that we are on the air here. What we're watching right now, and I'm going to point out exactly what we're talking about. This is the area that we're watching. Circulation right there to the west of Meshulaville. I'm going to circle it here. That is probably just crossed over Highway 14. But if you'll notice, this is tracking to the north, and so what we're going to do, we're going to put a track on it real quickly and assume that it's going north or northeast at about 20 to 25 miles per hour. That would put it around Oktok in 40 minutes. Now, this has sustained itself a little bit longer, so they may issue a new warning at some point, and if so, I would imagine it will be for northeastern Winston, northwestern Noxubee, and southeastern Oktibbeha. Would you agree, Matt?
Yeah, I would agree, and I think it's not inconceivable they would include Starkville, but I think it's probably more likely that it would be just a little bit west of that. A little bit east, a little bit east, sorry.
Right. So what we're looking at, again, right now, this is the area that we're watching. If you notice, there's a brighter shade to this green just to the west of Meshulaville, right on Highway 14. That's tracking to the north and northeast, a little more east of north. And that would put it right around the Noxubee Refuge out there, just south of Oktok. And the next little bit, if it holds together at that same direction, it might even be a little more closer to Lynn Creek. But right now, Weather Service has not issued a new tornado warning. I'll want to, just a second, we're going to continue. And I'll tell you what, when I look at the rain mode of that, I see this C shape to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely still there.
That just gives me the idea that there is some rotation still there. And I would imagine at some point here very shortly, we're going to see a new red box pop up right in there. They did trim this warning back, so they are at least acknowledging this has moved past Fern Springs. It has moved past Handle. It's getting real. It's pretty much moved past Highway 14. It is moved past 14. So I would imagine at any point now they're going to issue a new tornado warning for northwestern Noxubee and northeastern Winston. And we're just waiting for that to happen. Again, this is from the Winston County Sheriff's Department. No damage reports, thank God. So far we have not seen that, and hopefully it stays that way.
Now, you notice they just updated that tornado warning. They trimmed it. Basically, I mean, the question, we're having the same question other folks are having here, is whether or not they're going to go ahead and issue it. The discussion saying few rotating showers, not seeing vigorous growth in the immediate Starkville area, but folks need to stay vigilant, giving short spin-up times.
Is it possible they'll issue a severe thunderstorm warning for it?
I think it's more likely out of Jackson, tornado warning or nothing at all.
Sure.
I mean, that's not.
And what we're talking about right now, these southern counties that we have, the warnings that are issued for them are issued by a warning, are issued by the office in Jackson. The ones to the north are issued by the Memphis office. And so what we've got here, and by the way, Matt, I want to, and I'm going to break that train of thought there for a second. There's another tornado warning down in Kemper County that's coming up out of the DeKalb area and just north of Meridian. That's going to eventually track over into parts of Sumter County, I believe that is, and eventually maybe over into Pickens County if it holds together. At this point, it's still south of us, but we need to make sure that we're not ignoring that. But back to what I was saying a moment ago, and I believe actually I'm going to have to jump on Max 2. This is a different computer.
Okay, good.
What we're talking about here, and I'm going to point out exactly what I was just talking about. First of all, let me see if I can get the map centered there to my left there. All right, so we've got this one tornado warning that's over parts of Winston and Noxubee County there along 14. That's moved north. We've got another tornado warning down here into Kemper County. That one's tracking north. At this point, we need to watch it and make sure it doesn't get a new warning issued over into Alabama or into Pickens County. What I was saying earlier was the Jackson office is the one who issued this warning. The Memphis office issued this one. And what Memphis is doing is saying this is a severe thunderstorm that might have some rotation with it. They'll check in a little later. If there is any kind of confirmed or significant rotation with it, they'll opt to issue a tornado warning if that's the case. But at this point, what we're tracking, and I'll continue to highlight, what we've got is this rain band. And I talked about this all morning long, that these rain bands that feed into Harvey, which is still back over in the Delta, as it feeds into it, it has potential to produce rotation. That's what we've seen down in Winston County. That's what we've kind of seen over Yalobusha County. We did have a tornado warning in Tate County earlier up into northwest Mississippi. It has since expired, but the fact is that this rain band is tapped into just enough shear that is producing some rotation. And Matt, in the next hour or so, what do you think? And I'm not going to say what I think just yet because I don't want to, I want to know what you think is going to happen with this line. Is it strengthen?
I think that over the next hour or so, we are going to see intensification in this line. I think that as you can see, by the way, we'll touch on this in a second, they just extended that tornado warning into southern Oktibbeha County. I think we've seen an uptick just in the last 30 minutes on how strong these storms are, and I do think we'll see intensification probably on this whole line in the next hour. Is that what you were thinking?
That's what I was thinking,
and
too.
by the way, new tornado warning coming out just on the storm just south of Tupelo.
First of all, let's cover these two that we have. By the way, we have two new tornado warnings. There's one down here with that cell that we've been talking about, southern Oktibbeha County, northeastern Winston, and northwestern Noxubee County. That's tracking up toward the Noxubee Refuge and the Oktok area. Matt, I'm going to jump over here to Max 2 and go ahead and talk about the tornado warning that's just been issued for Lee, Pontotoc, Chickasaw, and if you want to take control of that there.
Yeah.
Okay,
let's go north to that one too. So new tornado warning issued for southern Oktibbeha County. And Joel, at any point, if you want to switch me spots, we can, or we can just continue like this. Either way, there are two rotations here. That's the reason this is an extra long tornado warning for northern Chickasaw and into Lee and Pontotoc counties. You have two areas there where you could argue for rotation that could be strong enough to produce a tornado. The one south of Okolona near 45 alternate, another one that's north of Okolona, east of Highway 41, and both of those kind of moving in a northerly direction there.
And both of those do have pretty, and these are the two that you were watching earlier. We pointed it out. There were some signs of rotation, but that would put it toward Okolona. There's one near Okolona that's going to be tracking up toward Okolona. There's another one there that would track it over just to, by the way, this is all areas west of Highway 45. So let's see if we can go ahead and, Matt, can we?
Do you want to trade me spots, or you want?
Yeah, let's trade spots just for a moment. I'm going to regroup here, Matt.
Okay, so let's reset for a moment here. What we have is a tropical system. What that tropical system has done is it has continued to produce some rotation, and you might be able to hear it in the background here, but the sirens going off in the Lee County area because of these two rotations moving northward about 30-35 miles per hour. One of the big headlines I want to make on this is that we expect that these storms today, if they produce tornadoes, those tornadoes would be very brief, very short-lived. That doesn't mean they're not impactful, but that does mean that they could briefly try to produce a tornado. Joel? Let's cycle you out. We're going to get Joel on this storm here if we can safely, as we continue to try to make sure we have everybody placed where we need to place them for a moment here. Let's go to our Tupelo tower cam here, if we could, please. And it might take a second for them to get it popped up back there in the control room. We're actually looking, these are the storms. And so we're looking into some of the low-hanging clouds here. I don't have an immediate shot here that looks exactly like we're dealing with a tornado or anything like that. The warnings issued today are going to be on an abundance of caution. We're looking directly into where that would be. And by the way, my phone going off with all sorts of weather calls, code red, that kind of stuff. Appreciate all the folks that are signed up with on those, and hopefully you are as well. I'm going to get this plugged in over here so that I make sure that my Facebook Live, you can follow us there. You can also follow us on WTVA.com/live. That's where our live stream is as well, that available there. But tornado warning issued for sections of Lee, Union, and Chickasaw County, Lee, Pontotoc, and Chickasaw counties because of this. Hold on a second here. Give me just a moment to get some of the, Joel, is his mic still off? Okay. Joel, I need your audio for just a second here because I didn't realize that this wasn't set up here. So we'll get Joel potted back up here for just a moment. And Joel, just to set the stage, have we had anything to this point in the area that has qualified as
Reports.
reports?
Have we gotten any kind of reports from anywhere in the newsroom, guys?
We haven't got any reports. Hey, Kelly.
No reports at this point.
Okay, so the headline is this. There's going to be a lot of ifs, there's going to be a lot of questions. I'm sure social media is lighting up with, we've seen this, we've seen that. There's going to be a very short period of time where we see anything out of any of these storms. So the headline is this: could we see a tornado today? Absolutely. But it's in the possibility, the maybe category, fortunately, and not the guarantee. And any tornado we would see today would be a fairly short-lived rotation. That doesn't mean it's not impactful. Now we have both microphones on. We should be good there. So looking south out of our Tupelo tower cam, we've been on this for a little bit, and the reason we're on this is because these storms moving quick enough, we have to be careful with it. That's a very good question. Joel asking me if we need, let's put non-essential employees. I feel like that's probably the best decision. It sets a good example for what folks at home should do as well. Storm track Doppler radar. I do expect that both of these circulations stay just a little bit to the west of our specific spot here at the television station, but it's a bit of a close call there. And by the way, there's a, let's go back to Weather 2 here for a moment now, if we could, please. Weather 2, and I'll try to get us on the tower cam and stuff from there. Okay, so a third storm, by the way, showing those same style of rotation back south of these two. Let's go individually on these. I apologize for a little bit of the reshuffling we had there as we're trying to... the first warning caught us about 30 minutes ahead of where we anticipated it, and so we're catching some stuff up behind the scenes here. So at about 20 to 30 miles per hour, the first of these storms, we're talking straddling the Pontotoc and Lee County line, the Longview community, 27 minutes for there, the first community in about 20 minutes for you moving northward. The definition that we have right now, all the information that we have tells us that we have rotation that at some point could lead to the development of a tornado, but at this point we are just dealing with the possibility, thankfully, and not confirmation out of these, so something we'll have to continue to watch. The main storm that we've been watching on this line is this northern one here, and certainly in all these cases we want you to take your tornado safety rules seriously, which is go to a sturdy structure on the lowest floor, find a room in the middle, turn up the volume on your TV, and wrap up blankets, pillows, and keep you there until we can give you the all clear. Those are the big headlines on this. Going southward on this line, the other storm that's following quickly in its footsteps, and that's what's tricky about this, is you get these storms that line up one after another, and so they trade on which one is the strongest. The one directly over top of Okolona, just about as strong, also tracking in about that 30-mile-per-hour rate as it moves back to the north and west. And so some of these times, if you're seeing some of these times showing up twice, and luckily these are all new locations there it popped up with. The Old Union community about 20 minutes, Palmetto there at about 26 minutes, and the western part of Tupelo, that says on the easternmost track here, the potential is there that it definitely could have some rotation west Tupelo. We'd be talking about a half hour at its present speed there as it continues to move toward the north and east. Let's clear that off for a moment. Let's go farther south here and let's assess our whole situation, because what has happened quickly over the last 30-40 minutes is we've watched more of these storms deepen. And that's important because that storm's rotating, that storm's rotating. Every one of these is rotating a little bit. So which ones are rotating enough to produce a tornado? That's the distinction. And that's the reason why now we have more tornado warnings, is now we're starting to get more of the oranges, the reds, the pinks showing up here. It's deepening that rotation enough that maybe it could produce something. The southern of these tornado warnings canceled in Winston County there. You can see popping off your